My fiancée called me low class in front of both families and her ex, so I canceled the wedding, blocked her whole family, sold the ring, installed a doorbell camera after the fake TV ad, and when the harassment hit court, the judge granted my restraining order and sanctioned her father. This is WZ Tales. Today's story follows a man who was publicly called low class by his fiancée at their rehearsal dinner, right in front of both families, and chose to end everything with one sentence. While you listen, imagine the exact moment you would have walked away. I'm Mason, 29, and until the night before the wedding, I was engaged to a woman named Tinsley. I work as a journeyman electrician. I make solid money, about $78,000 a year. I have a decent apartment, a truck I maintain myself, and no credit card debt. My parents are steady, hard-working middle-class people. My dad has run a small plumbing business for 30 years. My mom manages a dental office. They worked hard to help me through trade school, and I paid them back every dollar because that mattered to me. Tinsley came from a different world. Her family had serious money. Not nice vacation money. Not private school and a beach trip money. I'm talking country club memberships, family attorney on call, vacation home in Hilton Head, private foundation money. Her father owned a commercial real estate company with office parks and shopping centers across 3 states. Her mother did not work, unless you count chairing the family foundation and hosting polished charity events as work. Tinsley worked there too as a development coordinator. Officially, anyway. We met 3 years earlier at a party through mutual friends. Back then, she seemed different, warmer, less polished around the edges. Or maybe I just wanted to believe that. The first time I met her parents, I drove up in my truck and watched her mother look at it like I had parked a broken washing machine in the driveway. She never said anything directly. That was their style. Instead, she smiled and started talking about landscaping at their lake house. Native species, clean lines, root systems, everything very tasteful. Her father shook my hand and went straight to questions about my 5-year plan. Not nice to meet you. Not how did you two meet. Just a quiet little interview like I was applying for access to the family. That dinner taught me something important. People do not have to be openly rude to make it clear they think they are above you. Her mother kept calling me grounded. Her father asked about retirement contributions like he was auditing me. Tinsley corrected how I pronounced charcuterie in front of everyone, smiling while she did it, like it was helpful. Her sister Piper showed up late, asked where I trained, and when Tinsley said trade school, Piper gave this slow nod and said, "That's nice. Very practical." That was one of the first moments I should have taken more seriously. Sometimes the insult is not in the word. It is in the tone and in how everyone else reacts. Over the next 3 years, those little comments never really stopped. Her mother loved calling me industrious, which sounded like praise until you heard it enough times. Her sister called things I did charmingly blue-collar. Her father used that word again and again whenever I pushed back about anything. Grounded. It took me too long to understand it was their code for stay in your place. Tinsley played a softer version of the same game. If I reached for hot sauce at brunch, she would gently suggest something more refined. If I pushed back on a wedding decision, she would pat my arm and tell me I was overthinking things. If I got frustrated, she would smooth it over in public and handle it later in private, usually by telling me her parents were just trying to include me. The problem with being slowly disrespected is that it starts to feel normal if it comes wrapped in enough smiles. Still, I loved her, or I thought I did. When I proposed, I did it at the little Italian place where we had our first date. Nothing flashy, nothing designed for social media, just something real. She said yes, and for a minute I thought that meant we were choosing each other over all the noise around us. Then the wedding planning started. Her parents offered to pay for most of it, which sounded generous until every decision became theirs. I wanted simpler vendors. They wanted expensive ones. I wanted my uncle to officiate. They brought in a retired federal judge from the country club. I gave opinions. They listened politely and ignored them. Tinsley sided with them almost every time. "Babe, it's just easier this way. They're paying for it." I let more slide than I should have, but I had a reason. I was 6 months away from my master electrician certification. I had already been accepted into the program and started the coursework. If I blew up my personal life in the middle of it, my focus would be wrecked. Fail the exam, lose the raise, delay the next step of my career. I was not handing that kind of damage to people who already saw me as temporary, so I waited, quietly. Then, about 6 weeks before the wedding, their family attorney sent over a prenuptial agreement. I was not going to sign anything without my own lawyer, so I had an attorney review it. He called me within an hour. "This is not a normal prenup," he said. "This is a hostage note in Times New Roman." There were clauses about moral turpitude, reputation damage, and disclosure requirements. They wanted a full list of any past civil disputes, eviction actions, restraining orders, anything they could potentially use. My lawyer said if they wanted dirt, then we were checking their side too. So we did. We pulled public civil records on the family, not because I cared about old mistakes. Everyone has a past, but if they were going to ask for disclosures like that, I wanted to know what they were hiding while pretending to be careful. One case turned up tied to Tinsley's old college address. It had been dismissed, but the physical file still existed. We went to the clerk's office and pulled it. That was how I learned about Preston. Tinsley's old roommate, Chelsea, had filed a complaint over unpaid rent and property damage after Tinsley broke the lease and trashed some of her belongings. The attached screenshots told the real story. Tinsley's ex, Preston, had cheated on her with Chelsea. Tinsley blamed Chelsea, not Preston, took Preston back. Then he cheated again. Then again. She kept forgiving him and taking her anger out on other people. 3 cheating incidents across college. Same guy. Same pattern. The same Preston her family still talked about like he was some polished prince who got away. I read the file 3 times, then I said nothing. The past was the past and I was still planning to marry her, but I kept that information, not to use it, just in case I needed to protect myself. The rehearsal dinner was the night everything finally broke. It was at a place called Harrington's, an upscale restaurant her parents chose, private room, about 40 guests. More of her family's crowd than mine. Business contacts, country club types, family friends, cousins, people who all seemed to already understand the rules of the room. My family was there too. My dad in the nicest suit he owned, tugging at his collar like it was trying to choke him. My mom smiling, but with that tight look she gets when she knows she is around people she does not trust. My brother Trent trying to be polite with people who clearly did not see him as worth the effort. And the seating chart told the whole story. Her family dominated the front. Mine got pushed back near the service entrance. Even at the head table, I felt less like the groom and more like a guest being monitored. Then I saw Preston. He was seated 3 tables back with the old family friends and business people. Close enough to be visible, far enough away that they could pretend it was harmless. I watched Tinsley's father walk over, put a hand on his shoulder and laugh with him like he was still part of the family. I turned to Tinsley and said, "He's not sitting in the same room as my parents, fix it." She barely looked up from her phone. His dad and my dad golfed together. They're old family friends. It would have been weird not to invite him, just ignore it. I'm not ignoring it, I'm telling you it's a problem. She patted my arm. You're being so grounded about this. That word again. I excused myself, went to the restroom, and on the way back I flagged down the wedding planner. My parents are seated in the back, move them to table 2. She started to protest about the chart. I told her, do it or I'm walking out before the entree. She did it. Then I texted my best man, Cormac. If I stand up during dinner, you stand up, no questions. He texted back almost immediately, copy. When I got back to the table, Tinsley had not even noticed I was gone. That told me something too. Then, just before the speeches, her father stood up holding a manila envelope. Their family attorney was 2 tables over, exactly where he had a clear line of sight to everything. Her father smiled and said, "Before we begin the festivities, there is one small administrative matter. Mason, our family attorney, drew up a prenuptial agreement, standard practice. We just need your signature before Saturday." And then he slid the envelope toward me in front of 40 people. Tabs marked the signature lines. My full legal name in black marker on the front. It was not a request. It was an ambush. My parents looked frozen. Tinsley's cousin had her phone out recording a montage for the wedding week. Her family loved documentation when they thought it would flatter them. I did not touch the envelope. I said, "Sir, I'm an electrician. I don't sign live wires in public." Then I slid it back toward him. He glanced at Tinsley with irritation and said there had been a minor oversight, but it was straightforward and just protected the family trust, the foundation assets, the real estate holdings. I said, "I understand you're ambushing me with legal paperwork at a rehearsal dinner instead of going through proper channels. That part is clear." He smiled, but not with his eyes. "We're all family here, no need for formalities." The attorney slid his card toward me. I pushed it back. "My attorney will review it," I said. "If it's reasonable, we'll talk. Not tonight, not like this." The silence after that felt heavy. Her father backed down, but only because he had an audience. The envelope stayed on the table between us like evidence. Then the toast started. Her father spoke first. It sounded less like a speech about marriage and more like a merger announcement. Legacy. Opportunity. Building something lasting. He never once talked about love. Then my dad stood up. He is not a public speaker. He gets nervous in crowds, but he stood there in that room and talked about how proud he was of me, how I had worked hard, how I had put myself through trade school, how all he wanted was for me to be happy. That speech meant more to me than anything else that night. Real love rarely sounds polished. It just sounds true. Then Tinsley stood up. At first it seemed harmless. She told the story of how we met. Said she was not sure about me at first because I seemed simple, but she gave me a chance. People laughed a little. I even smiled. I thought maybe she was just trying to be funny. But earlier that night she had already made 2 smaller comments, one about how sweet it was that I helped the caterers move a table, another about how earnest my dad was. I realized now she was testing the room, seeing what she could get away with. Then she glanced toward Preston's table, and everything changed. She said, "My ex had this polish to him, private school, knew which fork to use, spoke French, very refined." The room got quieter, not silent yet. Just that strained kind of quiet where people feel danger coming but do not want to be the first to react. Then she turned toward me, smiled, and said, "My fiancé here, he's real, authentic, even if he is pretty low class compared to someone like that." It did not land all at once. It landed in pieces. A fork tapped a plate. One of the servers froze mid-step. My mom went pale. My dad's hand stayed still, but the tendons in his wrist stood up like wires. My brother looked ready to launch himself across the room, and across from me her parents were smiling. That was the worst part, not that she said it, that they liked it. I sat there for maybe 5 seconds. It felt longer. Then I stood up. I picked up my water glass because my mouth had gone dry. I took 1 sip. Then I looked at her and said, "Low class." I let it hang. Then I said, "You're right, I'm not polished. I'm also not a cheater." Her face drained instantly. I kept my voice calm. "Public records are public." That was all I said, short, clean. Enough to tell the truth and enough to make it clear I knew exactly who she was comparing me to. Someone near the back said, "Oh my God." Her mother gasped. Her father's smile disappeared so fast it looked painful. Preston had this look like his whole brain had stalled out. I set my glass down and said, "Enjoy your forks." Then I turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, let's go." And I walked out. Cormac stood up like I had told him to and came right behind me. So did my parents, then my brother. I could hear Tinsley calling my name, somewhere between crying and shouting, but I did not look back. When I got outside, the air finally felt breathable. Through the window, I could see the chaos inside. Her mother fanning herself. Her father already on the phone. Preston trying to leave without drawing attention. Tinsley frozen in place, and her cousin still recording. Good. I got home around 10, sat on my couch for 20 minutes in complete silence, and then started handling things. First, I called the wedding planner and left a voicemail. "The wedding is canceled. Please send me a breakdown of what I owe for my vendors." Then I texted Cormac to let the groomsmen know. Then I went to bed. And this part surprised me. I slept hard. No spiraling, No staring at the ceiling, just sleep. I think some part of me had already been carrying that relationship like a weight, and once it dropped, my body knew before my brain did. The next morning I woke up to 94 missed calls and around 180 texts. Tinsley had sent 38 messages that started with "baby, please call me," and eventually turned into accusations about how I had humiliated her. Her mother sent a flood of texts saying I had ruined the dinner and owed them an apology. Her father sent one message saying we needed to discuss this like adults. I blocked all of them, one by one. Tinsley, her mother, her father, her sister. It felt like cutting loose dead weight. Then came the financial mess. The wedding planner gave me the numbers. Between canceled vendors, deposits, and lost money, I was out about $19,000, money I had saved over years, overtime pay, birthday money. Every extra dollar I could set aside. It hurt. But I remember sitting there at my kitchen table and thinking I would rather lose $19,000 than spend 50 years married to someone who looked down on me. That math was easy. The engagement ring was another loss. I had paid $5,800 for it. Tinsley had taken it off and left it behind in the chaos. Trent went back and grabbed it before her family could. I took it to the jeweler and got offered 60% back because, according to him, custom settings do not resell well and desperate people never get full value. So I lost money there too. Then housing turned into a problem. I had already given notice on my apartment because I was supposed to move into Tinsley's condo after the wedding. My landlord had already rented my place to someone else. I ended up scrambling into a smaller apartment across town, older building, worse location, more expensive than it should have been, plus a new deposit on short notice. The place smelled like cigarettes for weeks. The hot water took forever. But it was mine. No one there looked at me like I was a project. I also drained my share from the joint account we had opened for wedding expenses. I had put in $18,000. She had put in $6,000. I took my 18, left her 6, opened a new account at a different bank and moved on. Then her father called from another number. He started listing venue losses, orchestra fees, photography fees, and blamed me for all of it. I told him, "Your daughter publicly humiliated me in front of both families. Funny how you keep skipping that part." He said she made a poor choice of words. A poor choice of words. That told me everything. To them, the problem was not what she believed. The problem was that she said it out loud. Then he said, "Do you understand what kind of life she could have given you?" There it was, the real belief underneath all of it. They thought they were elevating me, doing charity work with a wedding ring. I said, "I don't want a life someone gives me because they think I should be grateful. I want a partner." Then I told him to sue me if he wanted and hung up. A few days later, their attorney sent a demand letter asking for $42,000 for financial losses, emotional distress, and reputational harm. My lawyer called it intimidation dressed up as legal language and sent back a response that shut them down for the moment. When the money pressure did not work, they moved on to harassment. First, someone submitted my contact information to military recruiters across every branch. Army, Navy, Marines, all of them. My phone lit up for days with calls asking if I was ready to serve my country. Then somebody posted a fake Facebook Marketplace ad for a free 65-inch TV and used my apartment address. Random men started showing up at my door, some polite, some irritated, one convinced I was hiding the television from him. I installed a doorbell camera and started documenting everything. Over a week, 14 different people came to my apartment asking about a TV that did not exist. I filed a police report. Then, a fake concerned citizen email went to one of our biggest commercial clients, hinting they might want to look into my character before keeping me on their properties. My boss showed it to me. We laughed, but I could tell it made him uneasy. This was not just pettiness. It was a campaign. Once people stop trying to win fairly, they start trying to make your real life harder. That is when you stop hoping it dies down and start building your case. I kept records of everything. Every blocked number. Every strange call, every delivery, every letter, every man at my door, physical copies in a safe. Digital copies backed up. Then Tinsley showed up at one of my job sites with lunch. She walked right past the security checkpoint carrying a sandwich and 2 iced coffees like she was starring in some movie about a misunderstood fiancé trying to fix things. She smiled at my foreman, waved at my crew, held up the lunch bag like it proved she cared. I looked at her and said, "We're not together. The wedding's off. You called me low class in front of our families. Remember that part?" She smiled and said I was still upset and that couple's fight. Then she started talking about rescheduling for October like the last few weeks had never happened. That was when I knew it was not confusion. It was control. She thought reality was something she could edit if she just kept talking. I told my foreman to call the police. Her smile finally cracked. She left before they arrived, but not before loudly telling anyone nearby that she was just worried about me and I was clearly having some kind of breakdown. The next morning I filed for a restraining order. At the hearing, I brought the marketplace screenshots, the police report, doorbell footage, and a written statement from my foreman. Her attorney tried to frame it as a sad misunderstanding between 2 people who still cared about each other. The judge granted the order: no contact, no approaching my home or workplace, no third-party contact through family members. 6 months. Tinsley cried in court. I felt nothing. By then, detachment had become muscle memory. Then the rehearsal dinner video leaked. Remember that cousin filming the montage? Turns out the clip made its way through the family chat, then to the country club crowd, then eventually online. Within weeks, people in their social circle had seen Tinsley call me low class and watched the entire room fall apart in real time. Her family hated that far more than they hated what happened. Because some people can survive being wrong. What they cannot survive is being seen. A few weeks later, her father sued me for $67,000, emotional distress, breach of implied contract, interference with family relationships. The whole thing was ridiculous, but still expensive. My lawyer needed a retainer, and paying it forced me to defer my master electrician exam by 5 months. That part hurt more than the money. Still, I told my lawyer to fight it and include everything. The fake TV listing, the doorbell footage, the restraining order, her showing up at my work, all of it. He filed a motion to dismiss and a motion for sanctions with a full timeline of the harassment, 27 pages, screenshots, dates, reports, transcripts. 2 days before the sanctions hearing, their attorney tried to dismiss the case quietly. My lawyer told the judge that was not good enough. The judge agreed. Partial sanctions were granted. Her father had to pay $6,200 toward my fees. It did not cover everything I had spent, but that was not the point. The point was what the judge wrote in the order. The court is not a personal pressure tool for parties with resources to spare. That became public record, searchable public record. And that, more than any moral argument, did real damage in their world. 7 months later, life looked different. I finally took my master electrician exam and passed. My pay went up to $86,000. Work stayed steady. The client drama blew over once people understood it was personal nonsense, not professional misconduct. I started seeing someone new too, a woman named Renata. She was a physical therapist I met at a friend's birthday. When I told her I was an electrician, she said that was awesome because her dad was a plumber. No weird face. No little joke, no coded compliment. On our 3rd date, I taught her how to change her oil in my apartment parking lot. She got grease on her jeans and laughed. I told her the full story on our 4th date. She said, "Your ex sounds exhausting." Also, her family sounds like they peaked in high school. That was one of the most comforting things anyone said to me that year. No performance, no pity, just perspective. As for Tinsley's family, the fallout was hard to measure but easy to notice. The video kept circulating. The court sanctions were public. I heard there were whispers at their foundation gala. Lower attendance. Donors keeping distance. Somebody mentioned a major donor pulled back. I cannot prove all of that, and honestly, I do not care enough to try. The last time I saw her father was about 8 months after the rehearsal dinner. I was leaving the county clerk's office with permit paperwork for a job. He was coming out of zoning appeals. We nearly ran into each other. He looked older, tired. Coat still expensive, but it sat differently on him. He said, "This didn't have to go this far." I almost laughed. I said, "No, it didn't." And that was it. No big speech, no final showdown. Just two men who almost became family standing in a parking lot with nothing left to say. He got into his car and drove away. I got into my truck and went to work. And honestly, that was enough closure for me. I had my license upgrade. I had a good job. I had a woman in my life who did not look at my background like something to be managed. I had a life that actually felt like mine. That mattered more than winning. If I took anything from all of it, it is this. Lesson 1. If someone keeps disrespecting you in polished, careful ways, it is still disrespect. Fancy wording does not make contempt harmless. Lesson 2. When a family treats generosity like ownership, be careful. Money offered with conditions is not kindness. It is leverage. Lesson 3. Public humiliation does not start with the big moment. It starts with the small comments you keep excusing because you want peace. Lesson 4. Walking away can cost a lot up front, but staying with the wrong person costs more over time. Lesson 5. Class is not about which fork you use, how you speak, or what your parents own. It is about character, honesty, and how you treat people when you think you have power over them. What would you have done at that rehearsal dinner after hearing a comment like that in front of both families? And do you think Mason waited too long to leave, or did he choose exactly the right moment?